Brian, this is a family friendly channel. I usually I'm proud to announce that. But what the hell is that on your head?
I'm a cheesehead. You gotta pull for the Packers. You gotta wear a cheesehead. Unfortunately, I think they're gonna come in 3rd in this division this year again, but I'm gonna support and wear my cheese on my head at least for 2 seconds until I take it off and put my other hat back on.
I think you should. So looking at 2024, yes, they went 11-6. They did finish third in a division that made three teams playoff teams, and they were, of course, one of those three. They did this with the fifth ranked offense and the fifth ranked defense. And guys, I don't know that we're going to have too much to talk about when it comes to the Packers this year, just as far as this video goes, because they did not really change much. But I mentioned in a previous video that we had a team that was both top 10 in offense and defense, and how rare that was. Brian, the Packers top 5 really fit in both of those. How good was this team last year versus what you think they could be this year?
Yeah, so I think they were really good last year. They winning record, you can't go wrong with that other than you had 2 teams better than you. But you still had a winning record. I think you're going to get more of the same this year. I don't think they changed a whole lot from year to year, so it really shouldn't look a lot different. You know, maybe a little bit better, maybe a little bit worse, but I think they're going to have kind of the same year and be every bit as productive as they were last year.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, they've had a couple of marquee departures. The most notable name is Jari Alexander. Essentially, he has been an all pro level cornerback for a long time for them. He wanted a bigger contract than what they were willing to pay him. So rather than try to trade him or anything, they just cut ties. He is now signed off with Baltimore Ravens and joined that talented team. Eric Stokes is another corner that they lost. He is now a Las Vegas Raider. And then A.J. Dillon is now a backup running back behind Saquon Barkley with the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm not really worried about that either. They've already drafted his replacement, and he's had so many injuries already in his career that they were kind of used to not having him in that backfield anyway. So, I mean, other than those losses to the secondary, do you think the Packers have anything to worry about as far as talent that they lost?
No, because like I said, they were good last year. They're gonna be good this year. This division is gonna be so close. Uh, if you watched our Bears video, you know, all 4 of these teams are gonna be right there together. I don't see a lot of separation between the 2 of them, or I'm sorry, between the 4 of the teams. I think they're gonna be just as well off without them as they had with them. So I don't think it hurt them at all with the departures.
Yeah, I mean, they signed Aaron Banks to a 4 year, $77 million contract, come in and play guard, improving the offensive line for Jordan Love, improving the offensive line for Josh Jacobs at running back, just making sure that offense stays afloat, stays on the field. And then Nate Hobbs, a very talented corner, he comes in 4 year, $48 million deal, starting to kind of take over that Jairi Alexander role, fill some of the holes, that void that was left by his departure, making sure that they're not just getting torched week in and week out. There are some very good receivers in this division. Might be an understatement when you look at Justin Jefferson, you look at Amon-Ra St. Brown. Obviously, in yesterday's video, we talked about how good we think Roma Dunze can be, DJ Moore still around, that sort of thing. You're going to need talented defenses, and they've got one. They also brought back their kicker, Brandon McManus, on a 3 year deal. I think that was pretty good for them because Green Bay being able to kick in all the different weather environments, a lot of people think that it is almost, I guess, sacrilegious to suggest that Green Bay would benefit from playing in a dome. Lambeau Field in the snowstorm, it's where legends are made. You look at Brett Favre, you look at Aaron Rodgers. They built their careers on being able to perform in those elements. Brandon McManus is able to perform in those same elements and keep that offense producing points, whether it's 3, whether it's 7. I think that was worthwhile to bring them in. And heading into the draft, they were a team that didn't have a lot of holes. They were able to add talent. I think they did a pretty good job of that.
I agree.
So first round pick right off the bat. The one thing that they never really gave Aaron Rodgers that he was very vocal and adamant about was they never gave him a first round receiver. Well, here he is, Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas, late first round pick. This was somebody that played across from Isaiah Bond. You talk about Arch Manning, you talk about Quinn Ewers, the receiving weaponry that they had at Texas last year, the fact that they underproduced, they lost to Georgia a couple of times last year. And it's like, it's hard to really imagine that they were taking those losses with a guy like Matthew Golden. I think he steps in for the Christian Watson injury, becomes their number one in a very crowded room. Could still be Romeo Dobbs, but Matthew Golden has the highest ceiling of any receiver in that room. They come back in the third round, take another receiver in Savion Williams out of TCU. He's a little bit more of a wide receiver, tight end tweener, but he is listed as a wide receiver. I expect him to play wide receiver for the Packers, even if he's their wide receiver five, somebody like a Bo Melton that gets pushed to the side because of him. I think that's okay to think. And then sandwiched between those was Anthony Belton, offensive tackle out of NC State. I'm going to be real honest with you. I did not know much about him. Didn't have him in my rankings, did not have him on my draft radar. I'm not sure if this was a reach or somebody that I just overlooked. Obviously, they thought highly enough of him to make him their second round pick. Again, you talk about bringing in that offensive guard in Aaron Banks. Now you've got another tackle that's coming in. They know that this offense needs to stay on the field. They know that they need to keep themselves as healthy as possible, keep those drives sustained. If you expect their defense to take a step back, you need their offense to pick up the slack, and they've got the weapons and the line to do it. So, Brian, what do you think about them in 2025? What record could you see Green Bay pulling off after the draft?
I, I think I alluded to it earlier. They're going to be about where they're at this year, or 2024. They're going to be that 11 or 12. I wouldn't be super surprised to see them fall to a 10 win, and go into that last place or that middle of the road, that second or third place. I really think they're going to fall about third in line with this, because I have the Bears that have jumped up dramatically. And with that, I'll go ahead and put a spoiler. I think the Lions will fall dramatically. Not enough that they're going to be a 5-win team, but you know, with them with their 15 win last year, I don't think they're going to get that 15 year. And I'm talking about the Lions here. Uh, so yeah, I'm right around that 11, 12 game win cycle. They're either going to be second, third, somewhere around in there.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I have them at 11-6, which was their record last year, and that was third in the division. I think they finished 11-6 again, but I actually have them winning the division with that record. I have them obviously being a playoff team, but like we talked about yesterday in the Chicago Bears video, the Bears are going to take a big step up. I could see the Lions taking a sizable step back. You and I both agree that all four of these teams are going to be right there within a couple of wins of each other. There's going to be a very short margin of error for all of these teams. And so the same record that got them third place, I could see them that record winning it, because I expect the teams like the Lions to not take as many wins. I expect the Bears to take a few more wins. And so if Green Bay can have a few breaks go their way, I could see them winning this division, not in a runaway, not like what we talked about with Baltimore or Kansas City, but still playing a very impressive, very good brand of football and being an all around very good team, both sides of the ball contributing. Talk about Brandon McManus on their special teams, kind of holding that unit down, and just being a good team week in and week out, a very hard out for anybody to get, and just competitive every Sunday, competitive.
Yep, and I think you're gonna see that with this division, no matter whether they're playing in division or out of division, this is gonna be a tough conference. The NFC North is not gonna be a joke. So it's I think Green Bay is gonna do good. You talked about it, as we move in through the season, later in the season. And you start getting to those cool snow games, and what Lambeau Field it was made of, and what you see in the pictures. I they're a gritty football team. I like them. I think I could see them being first. I could see them being last. This division is so tossed up and will be tossed up, and that's not a bad thing. I just think they're all going to be so even. It's really, really hard to say, Bears are going to be first, Packers second. You're not going to be able to do that with this division. It's everything is pure speculation. It's going to be a close race. I can't wait to see it. I'm really looking forward to these games.
Brian, we're doing an NFL series, but we're both college football guys as well.
Yep.
Think about a top 10 when you start looking at those rankings, and how cool is it to see, oh, there's 4 SEC teams, or there's 3 Big Ten teams in that top 5. And you look at these seasons where Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State are all at the top of the leaderboards and everything like that. This is the NFL equivalent of that. This division is going to have 3 or 4 teams with a winning record in 2025. I think that Green Bay is one of them.
Yep.
And so it's not something that I think you can really say with a lot of confidence who's going to win this division, but the Packers are that team that I have them. And what makes them great in real life is what hurts them when it comes to fantasy football. Their biggest strength is an overstocked arsenal of offensive weapons. If you look at their depth chart, it's hard to even imagine who's not going to make the roster. Anybody that they put on their practice squad could immediately be poached by another team that needs help in the receiving room because they've got a bunch of guys. So I'm kind of branching into that, fantasy football section a little earlier than we usually do. But
Yep.
you look at their wide receiver, they've got Matthew Golden, their first round pick. Romeo Dubs, he's been there for a long time. He's not going anywhere, I don't think. Jaden Reed is a mismatch nightmare. They can use him in a number of different ways. Dontavian Wicks could be a fantastic receiver if he knew how to catch the ball. That's kind of the only thing that holds him back, which is kind of important considering receiving is what he is supposed to do.
Yeah.
Savion Williams, their third round pick. You expect him to make the team. Obviously, Christian Watson has been a big part of that receiving room. I don't know how much he's going to play this year after the injury that he suffered last year. He could be on IR all year. When he comes back, what happens to him? Do they bring him back? Do they let him go? And then they also signed Mecole Hardman. Obviously that's somebody that former Georgia Bulldog, former Kansas City Chief, has caught game-winning Super Bowl touchdowns. Mecole Hardman has. Does he have a role in this team? Jordan Love is not going to be short for weapons. Even at tight end, Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgrave, Savion Williams can take snaps at tight end. They've got just an overstocked arsenal. Like I said a moment ago, they've almost got too many weapons. And yes, it hurts them when it comes to fantasy football because you don't know who of those guys you need to roster because it could be any of those guys. You don't know who the 1, 2, or 3 is. You just know that this offense is going to be very good. Jordan Love is a great quarterback that can facilitate that, and he's got plenty of options. As far as biggest concern goes, it's the division. Last year, they were 1-5 in this division. I don't think that's going to continue. I think that you could see a lot of 3-3, 4-2 teams. I don't know that you're going to have a 1-5 in the division. And if you do, I think it could be the Lions. I don't think it could be the Packers, and that's why I have them winning the division. But I'm curious what you thought about that.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't see the 1-5 again. I'm I think the 3-3, you know, maybe 2-4, maybe 4-2. You're going to see a lot of that between all 4 of these teams. I don't have one more dominant than the other. I think a lot of this division comes down to line play. Who has the best line? Who escapes the injury bugs on their offensive line to allow these weapons to flourish. And that goes for all 4 teams. If one team gets more injury bug than the other, their season is kind of not ruined, but it definitely will weigh heavily, especially on our predictions and stuff like that. And I guess that's true with any football team in any conference, but especially with this one, with it being so tight, all the teams being very, very good, very, very similar. I That's kind of where I'm at. I'm like you with the fantasy football. I think the real winner on this and the real pickup would be Love because he does have so many weapons. You know, I think there's too many weapons for me to put any one of these. Maybe put him on my bench, maybe I start him as a flex or something like that, or a wide receiver 2 somewhere in there. But I really, if I'm looking for somebody that I'm going to pull off the Packers, it's going to be Love as the quarterback because he can literally go anywhere with that football, and he's got a weapon there. So
Yeah, I think he can be every bit as good this year for the Packers as what Jared Goff has been for the Lions the past couple of years. Josh Jacobs would be the Packer to own for me just because I feel like he's the one that doesn't have the same level of competition. Yes, he does have a talented backup, but Matt LaFleur has shown a willingness to feed his top guy. Keep him out there as much as you can. He's going to get plenty of opportunities to catch passes. He's going to be able to score touchdowns. He has been somebody that, when he was a Raider, might have had some issues staying healthy, but last year looked very good in this offense, and I think it could continue on this year. I think he's proven a lot of people wrong. He's one of the more underrated top backs in the league. He constantly outproduces what his expectations are, and I don't think that changes this year. If you want to take an upside shot in a deeper league, Matthew Golden, see what he becomes. If he is just as good as advertised and he can take a larger target share than what the other receivers in this offense have been able to carve out for themselves over the past few years. I talk about Dontavian Wicks having blown opportunities to stand out. If he can come in and do the opposite of Wicks, be reliable, be impressive, I think he's somebody that could pay dividends in fantasy football. But I'm like you, it's Josh Jacobs and it's Jordan Love. Love doesn't do as much running as I like from my quarterbacks. I prefer the Lamar Jackson, the Jaden Daniels, the Kyler Murray, because that is just broken in fantasy scoring formats. But especially if you're in a league that has 6 point per passing touchdowns rather than 4 points, you're going to love what Jordan Love does because he could easily throw 35, 40 plus touchdowns this year with the receiving options that they have.
absolutely. Well, before we go out, I would like to show some love to our lads. You know, we pull from their website on, you know, getting the depth charts that we've been using. We're not sponsored by them. We haven't asked for any money or asked for any sponsorship or anything like that. But we do want to show them some love, and you know, because we are, you know, essentially going on their website, they do a fantastic job of putting these lineups together even before the teams have put it, which is understandable because they still have to get down to a 53-man roster. I understand that. So shout out to our lads, and you know, letting the world see what they can do and how they put things together. But with that being said, I would like to thank Brad for this episode, and we are going to get out of here and hopefully get another video.
Go Pack, go.